Good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome to today's session of Family Story Times on Race and Diversity. I'm Sira Williams. I'm the children's librarian here at the Red Bank Public Library, and it's Black History Month. So what do you think we're going to talk about today? We're going to talk about Black history, right? And we've kind of been doing that this whole time through all of these sessions of Family Story Time on Race and Diversity. But today is a good day. I have 3 things I want us to do. Number 1, I want to talk about history in general and why it's important for us to learn about it. Number 2, I want to read you a book. You know I love books, and I have a good one for us today. And number 3, I want to give your family some ideas of things that you can do to celebrate Black History Month together, because it's not Black History Day, it's not Black History Week, it's Black History Month. That means you have a lot of time and you should take advantage of it to learn as much as you can. So I'm going to give you some good ideas. Let's talk about the word history. We've done this before. Here's the word, and it's a cool word because if I erase H-I, which spells hi, but I say bye hi, and what am I left with? The word story, right? Story. And that's your clue, that history is just made up of a bunch of stories. They're true stories, they're real life stories of things that happened in the past. And so that's what history is all about. Now, why should we even care about what happened a long, long time ago? Do you think it's important? Well, it is important because really you can't understand what's going on in the world today unless you know what happened in the past. It's true. I'm going to give you an example, just a little example that you'll be able to relate to. Say that you're having a fight with your brother or your sister or your friend. Like you're screaming at each other, you're throwing things, you're so mad, you're kicking and punching, and then a grown-up walks in. And what's the first thing the grown-up wants to know? They want to know, what happened? What happened here? Who started this? What did she say? What did you say? Who threw that? What happened? You know everybody's going to have a different side of the story, right? Yup. But they got to know what happened. They have to know the history in order to help you get over it and move on. And so that's why history is important. And the issue about different sides of the story is important too, because the history that we learn at school is most often told from the point of view or from the side of white men. And that's just because they're the ones who've been in charge of almost everything throughout history. But that means that we don't really very often get to hear the side of the story or the point of view of Native Americans or Black people or even women, right? Because these are populations that were oppressed and their stories didn't get told, but they have stories and they're important, and their history is American history. So it's really important for us to get to know those stories so that we can get a full picture of American history. And when we learn about history, we can kind of think about it the way we think about reading books. When we talk about mirror books and window books. Does that sound familiar? When we look in a mirror, we see ourselves, right? So when we study history about people that look like us and come from our background, it's like looking in a mirror. And I can see myself, but I can also see behind me. When I look in a mirror, guess what? I could see you. Can you see me looking at you? So I can see behind me. When I'm studying history, I'm looking in the past and I can see all the people and all the events that brought us to where we are today. And I'm looking not only at the struggles that they had to overcome, but I'm also learning about all of the contributions that they've made to this country. And I'm learning about important people. I'm learning about civil rights heroes. I'm learning about inventors. I'm learning about artists and athletes and authors and astronauts and scientists and so many different people and events that are inspiring. So learning about history will fill your head with knowledge that you can use for life, and it also fills your spirit with inspiration and with self-esteem, so that when you look in that mirror, you feel good about who you see and where you come from. Now, when I look in a window, I'm not seeing myself. I'm looking out, I'm seeing you, or people that are different than me. And I can see beyond them and into their history as I study history and learn about different cultures and their struggles and the things that they've overcome and all that they have contributed to our society. And when we do that and we learn about each other and we learn about each other's history, we can appreciate each other so much more, and we can live together and get along much better, because we realize once again that we have more in common than we have differences. And that brings us together. So that's why we have these special months like Black History Month. It just reminds us that we should be learning different points of view, right? So I'm going to read you a book. The book I'm going to read today is called We Shall Overcome. It's the story of a song, and it's written by Debbie Levy and illustrated by Vanessa Brantley Newton. Oh, hey, you see this pin this little character has on that says We Shall Overcome? We have a button maker at the library, and I made myself a matching button. I love it. All right, well, before I crack this book open, I want to make sure you understand what the word overcome means. Overcome means to win victory over a difficult problem or situation that is upsetting or hard to deal with. And so overcoming something a lot of times means you have to put in work to fix the problem, because if you ignore problems, you can get away with that for a little while, but they don't go away. So you got to fix them. And sometimes that takes bravery. Sometimes it takes time. A lot of time you need help, right? But this book and the song We Shall Overcome is talking about the problem of racism and overcoming that. So for generations, Black people have been singing this song to inspire them to keep hope alive that better days will come. And really, this song became an anthem during the Civil Rights Movement as people struggled for peace and for justice and for a better world. And so they used their voice, not just in song, but also in protest and with their vote to make change. And so this is the history of this song. Now, it's a musical book. That means I have to sing. If you know me, you know I like to sing, but I'm definitely not a pro. So I'm going to encourage you to look this up and listen to a good rendition of it. But I'm going to do it. I will. Let me get up so you can see the pictures. It says, I'll be all right. I'll be all right. I'll be all right someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe I'll be all right someday. That's the tune of the song, and that's how they sang it in the very beginning. And it says, back in slavery times, when enslaved people worked long days with no pay and no say, no freedom, no fairness, no choice, and no chance, the people sang. They suffered, yet they sang to soothe the hurt, to fight the cruelty, and to declare that, yes, they were human beings. I'll overcome someday. I'll overcome someday. If in my heart I do not yield, I'll overcome someday. You're in church now, you see? It says it took a war, the Civil War, to end slavery. But even after, white people treated black people as less than fully human, excluding them, ignoring them, blaming them, even attacking them, all because of the color of their skin. Black people were no longer slaves, it was true, but they were not truly free. Still, they believed things would get better, and still they sang. We will overcome. We will overcome. Do you notice that the words are changing over time? It says it wasn't easy to believe. It wasn't easy when white people shut out African Americans from good jobs and good pay, schools and libraries and neighborhoods, restaurants and hotels and bathrooms, train cars and bus seats, playgrounds and parks. But Black Americans and some white Americans did believe they could overcome the unfairness, hate, and violence. They started to protest. They brought a church song, I Will Overcome, to the streets. But since they were marching and working together, they sang, we will overcome. We together will overcome. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we will overcome someday. From the streets, the song reached the ears of city people, country people, followers, and leaders. It reached Martin Luther King, the most important leader working for justice for African Americans. He took the song with him in his heart everywhere he traveled. The words changed a little, but the spirit stayed the same. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. It says there were many forms of race hatred and many ways to fight it. Some students fought by sitting down in restaurants and asking to be served. They didn't ask for free food. They didn't want special service. They just wanted to buy a meal like any white person could. The students sat and sat, waiting for hamburgers, donuts, and sodas that never came. The students sat and waited until they were arrested. And as they were taken away to jail, they sang, we are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Well, more and more people decided to stand up for African Americans. One small group, the Freedom Singers, traveled 50,000 miles in 9 months to living rooms, concert halls, elementary schools, jails, high schools, and rallies, bringing We Shall Overcome to people in 40 states, inspiring them to believe that change was coming. And they sang, we are not alone. We are not alone. The biggest gathering of people united in support of fairness for African Americans took place in the nation's capital. Marching towards the Lincoln Memorial, hundreds of thousands of people, black and white, young and old, joined hands, joined voices, and sang, "We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday." Slowly, slowly, things were changing. Laws were passed, but race hatred stayed strong, even stronger than laws. So President Lyndon Johnson gave a speech. His ancestors once held slaves in Texas and Georgia, but President Johnson looked out at the millions of people watching him on television and spoke of equal rights, human rights, and voting rights for African Americans. We must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice, and we shall overcome. How could such a song stay in one country? It could not. "We Shall Overcome" sailed across the oceans to other countries where people faced injustice. It traveled to South Africa, where Black Africans embraced it as their own freedom song in their long struggle against an all-white government that treated them as outcasts in their own land. They sang, "Black and white together, black and white together, black and white together someday." And then the song traveled to India, East Germany, South Korea, Czechoslovakia, Northern Ireland, Bangladesh, China, the Middle East, South America, wherever people worked for a better life. "We will live in peace. We will live in peace." Even as it spread across the globe, the song never really left its American home. It took a very long time, but race hatred did grow weaker. Freedom grew stronger. President Lyndon Johnson was followed by another president and another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another. And then the people of the United States, black and white and young and old, elected an African American man to be their president. On that day, people sang the song that so many voices had sung before, in pain and in protest. On that day, they sang in happiness. "Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday." That's not the end. It says today, people still struggle against hatred and for freedom, against poverty and for fairness, against despair and for hope. We still sing. We still sing to declare that yes, we are all human beings, deserving of respect, sharing the same planet, the same future together. I really like this picture too. And then the end of this book has some historical information, more details about the events that were pictured in this book, from slavery to the Civil War, to the protest movements, the March on Washington, the presidents, Johnson and Obama. So there's a lot of information in here. This might be a good book for you to check out and learn more about Black history. But this is why I wanted to read this book to you today. And this is the #1 thing on my list of things that you can do to celebrate Black History Month, and that is to read books. There are so many good books for kids of all ages about Black history. You could read about a person or an event. You know what? You could also watch a show or a movie, because there's really a lot of good ones out there too. And if you need help to find a good one, whether it's a book or a film, you can ask your librarian. We'll help you. All right, I have more ideas of things that you could do. You could just get on the computer or on your phone and Google away. You should do this with your family so that you're looking at age-appropriate things, but you could go online and listen to Dr. Martin Luther King give the I Have a Dream speech. That's pretty amazing to hear it in his voice. That would be something good to do. You could look up some famous Black artists and take a look at their work, or listen to music. Or this is really cool, to research Black inventors. Just Google Black inventors and you will be amazed at all of the things that you didn't know, things that you use every day that were invented by Black people. From traffic lights to cell phones to super soaker squirt guns. There's so many things, and that is really interesting to do. What else can you do? What else is on my list? How about you could visit a museum virtually on your computer? The Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture has a children's learning lab and some STEM collections online and things that you could do. That would be fun. And I have one more good idea. Start with where you live, the town that you live in or the state that you live in, and see if you can find out if there's anybody famous or any famous sites that you could visit that have to do with Black history. I bet there are. I know there are. Just in our little town, we have Count Basie, who was a very famous band leader and musician. He was born and raised here, and we have a lot of things named after him in our town. And also T. Thomas Fortune, who was a very famous journalist and activist. He also lived in our town. And so see if you can find something interesting about your local area and Black history. All right, listen, I want to kind of wrap this up, but I want you kids to know that as adults or as your family members, our hope is that you guys will inherit a world that is better than the one that we grew up in way back in ancient history. That doesn't mean that we want you to have more money than us or that we want you to have cooler stuff. That's good. What we really want is for you to have a world that is safer, that is healthier, that is cleaner, where people live together in peace and harmony. That's really our wish for you, whether no matter what race we are or what culture we come from or what country we come from, that's our wish for the young people in this world. And I'm pretty sure that's been the wish of families throughout history. And so this is the thing, the world is not perfect for you right now. We still have work to do. We still have things to overcome, right? There are still attitudes that need to change. There are people in this world, in this country, that don't like other people because of the color of their skin or the language that they speak or their religion, and that's not right. We need to work on that. There are still laws and policies that discriminate against people, and we need to overcome those. And there are still injustices that happen every day that we need to fight. And so learning our history is a good way to start, because that gives us inspiration to know how other people handled those adversities, and maybe we can do the same. The more you know, the more you grow. When you know what people did in the past, then like I said, you can imagine all that you can do, and you can even think of things for yourself that no one's ever done before, and maybe you can do it. I have an expression. I don't have an expression. There is an expression that I really love. I really don't know who to attribute it to, but I'm going to share it with you. It goes, you are your ancestors' wildest dreams. Think about that. That means you are living a life that your ancestors never could have imagined. Not just because all of the technology and new things that we have, but because of all the things that you can be and do, right? Because in this day and age, compared to back in history, whether you're black or white, whether you, no matter what language you speak, no matter how you identify, no matter what religion you are, you can dream big and you can do big things. So that's what we want you to do. Use your voice and get in the fight to help make the world a better place. That's all we can do. We got to work together. And one way to start is to spread a little peace and love. I always want to do that. So, bam, catch it and pass it on. Take good care of yourselves. Happy Black History Month. And I'll see you next time. All right? Take care, everybody.